Hey, it's KB, and I love movies. Welcome to the channel, or if you've been here before, welcome back. For today's video, I'm going to cover Huck's latest challenge, which is favorite directors. This is the one I've been looking forward to because when I think of movies just based on what I've seen over the years and what I've studied, the director is such a vital, important part of every movie. Of course, the acting and the rest of the crew, but it's usually the director's vision, as well as the editor, that makes for a great movie. So these are some of my favorites. As you can imagine, it's not limited to 25 or 26, so I do have some honorable mentions. John Carpenter, James Wan, Ivan Reitman, Ridley Scott, James Cameron. I think I've shown enough Terminator. I'm not going to pull Avatar for that. Cameron Crowe, Michael Mann, Sam Raimi, Jill Six, still want to have a conversation with you, Rob Reiner, Gina Prince Blythewood, Catherine Bigelow, Park Chan-wook, and John Landis, just to name a few. But as far as my 26, we're going to go through them now, and we're going to start off with Fellini. A lot of these, they're so popular, you could just call them by one name. So Federico Fellini. And when I think of Federico Fellini, I think of 8.5. So I like movies that are about making movies, and this is one of the premier ones. It was the movie with also La Dolce Vita that got me into Italian cinema, so really cherish this one. Next, we're going to turn to the movie that I probably had the most copies of since VHS days, and that's Francis Ford Coppola, not The Godfather. I already did that. We're talking about Apocalypse Now. So every time I bought a copy of this, something else got announced. So DVD days, I got Apocalypse Now, and then they said that the Redux was coming out, so I got that. Then the Blu-ray came out, and then they had the Ultimate Edition with Hearts of Darkness on there. I wanted that. Then the 4K came out, so on and so forth. So 3 different cuts, Hearts of Darkness included. Love this movie. Next is Spike Lee. And as you can see, Do the Right Thing is right there, so I'm not pulling that one. But I'm going to pull something that's a little more near and dear to my heart because of his co-writer, and that's BlacKkKlansman. This was written by Spike along with 3 other gentlemen, one of which is my friend Kevin Willmott. He also co-wrote Chirac and The Five Bloods with him. Great man, great brother, and I look forward to having a conversation with him on the channel too, because we always have a good time when we chat, so might as well share it with you. Next, we have John Hughes. A lot of great movies that kind of defined my generation's teenage years with the way he covered drama and teenage angst and so forth, and comedy, as we saw in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But John Hughes to me is The Breakfast Club. So we have The Breakfast Club here. The Criterion edition is really great because there's a lot of great extras on there. Recently passed away, we have JeanLuc Godard next, and we have Breathless. One of his premiere films. A lot of people say this is what launched the French New Wave. I love it. I have another copy somewhere, so haven't opened this one yet. I'm also dealing with a sinus thing right now, so if I sound weird, I apologize. Next, we have Christopher Nolan. I'm in the pro Dunkirk camp. I do love that movie, but also Inception. I love Inception. But when I think of Christopher Nolan, I think of one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, and that's The Dark Knight. So we have The Dark Knight here. I have the 4K, but I love this Blu-ray Steelbook. I have all 3 of them for the trilogy, but love that movie. Rest in peace to Heath Ledger. Next up, we have Gravity. And Gravity was directed by Alfonso Cuaron. And this is a pretty great movie. Um, the acting, it just comes down to Sandra Bullock's performance. George Clooney is being George Clooney, no big there. But the direction, the cinematography, even though it's mostly you would think CGI, the cinematography had a lot to do with what made this movie great. And the thing about Cuarón is he works really, really close with his cinematographer and his editor, and that always makes for a great movie. Talking about great movies, we have one of the greatest of all times, and that would be Orson Welles with Citizen Kane. If you don't understand this movie or you think it's boring or too long, it's 2 hours, 119 minutes exactly. I implore you to watch it with a commentary to get a better understanding of this movie, what it did, the things that he did. The Mankiewicz script is what it is, but the technical aspects of this movie were unprecedented and undone in a lot of cases at the time. So to truly appreciate the greatness of this movie, you really have to watch a commentary sometimes. Jordan Peele is next. We only have 3 choices. Of one, it's not released yet. So we're going to go with still his best movie, which was his first, and we're talking Get Out. It's a shame that the rest of his movies will be compared to this, but this was great. This is what happens when you get a writer and a director. You know exactly what you want from the movie because it's your vision of your script. We see that a lot with Spike Lee and with other writer-directors, and you could tell he took a couple of years to come up with this one, and it shows in how great it is. Next, we have David Fincher. I was going to pull Social Network, but I forgot it downstairs, so I turned around, looked on my Blu-ray shelf, and the first thing I grabbed was Gone Girl. So this one surprised me. I liked it, just like the book. The book was great too. Local writer, I have to say. But yeah, I like to see Ben get it sometimes. Oh, moving on. My favorite director besides Hitchcock is Martin Scorsese. You know, I'm going to work on having his entire filmography in 2023. But the question that I asked on my 5 takes is, what is a film that made you fall in love with the movies? And if you don't know by now, mine is Goodfellas. So Goodfellas really made me fall in love with every aspect of making a movie, especially the writing, the directing, the editing, and the cinematography. So Goodfellas, I'm going to move on because I'll just keep talking about that. Next, we have Kurosawa. When you think of Kurosawa, you think of various samurai movies, one of the greats in Asian cinema, but one of my favorites is High and Low. So you can see I have the high definition one and the low definition one. But this is a great movie, great storytelling, I have to say. And it's one of my treasured titles. Talking about treasured directors, we have the great Steven Spielberg. We're talking about almost 50 years of movie making, but I'm going to pull Jurassic Park for this one. This really solidified his movie making in the 90s, and I have to say, they can make 6 movies or 16 movies after that in the franchise. Nothing beats the original Jurassic Park. Next up, we have, I'm just going to put it up there. You should know who the director of this is. If you don't, that means you need to check it out and see Mr. Jackson's work in this. Awesome. Awesome stuff. Gonna move some of these around here so they don't fall. Next, we have Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is important to me because he really started what I like to call independent cinema on big Hollywood stage, and Clerks was the original, but for this one, I pulled Mallrats. So in Mallrats, you get Kevin being Kevin with money. That's the best way I could put it. So Universal gave him a lot of money. They gave him access to Universal Park Studios, and he made the best of it. It's a funny movie. I still enjoy watching it. Next up, we have the Cohen Brothers. Great filmography. You could go to Fargo. You could go to Inside Llewyn Davis, but one of my favorite villains of all movie cinema history is in this one, and we're talking No Country for Old Men. So, Sugar is one of the greatest villains I've ever seen on screen, played by Javier Bardem, and this is a classic that needs a 4K. It needs a 4K. Every time I say this man's name, it makes me smile. We're talking about Guillermo del Toro. Oh, I should have pulled Crimson Peak for this one, but the movie that I keep going back to of his is Pan's Labyrinth. And I don't have the 4K because this is the better transfer, which is really sad to say, but the Criterion Blu-ray is better than the 4K. Fight me on that. A more recent, one of my favorite directors has been Bong JoonHo. When I first saw Snowpiercer, I didn't really know about him and the host and all that. But when this movie came out, it was a freight train of success. And we're talking about Parasite. Parasite is probably the closest thing to a perfect picture in the last 5 years, 2019. And it's one that I return to quite often. The Criterion is great because there's also a black and white edition, and it's amazing how just color compared to black and white can change the mood in a movie. Another two to check out in that case would be Logan and also Mad Max Fury Road. Those two movies in black and white or chrome edition, whatever they want to call it, really makes a difference in the temperature of the movie. Next up, we have QT, Quentin Tarantino. I'm happy to see some of his 4Ks are starting to come out. The one that I'm looking forward to, although the cover is kind of whack, is Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is a great example, another great example of writing a great screenplay and then directing it as well. It brought back John Travolta. Unfortunately, he didn't make some good films after that. And it's another Sam Jackson movie, so once you have Sam Jackson there, everything is great. The master of suspense. We have Alfred Hitchcock next. I have love for him. I have an entire shelf with his movies up there. But this time I'm going to go with his Academy Award-winning film, and that's Rebecca. It's a shame he never won a Best Director award because it's well overdue. Of course, they gave him a Lifetime Award. Not the same. You want to be credited for your actual work as you put it out. And I already used the Masterpiece Collection with the majority of his American movies, so going with Rebecca. Talking about editing, a director that relies heavily on his editor is Edgar Wright. And I love his movies that has fast and clever editing. And one of my favorites is Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim's editing with the video game motif is just excellent. I love this movie. It makes me smile. I can watch it all the time. Next up, we're going to go to Stanley Kubrick. And when we think of Stanley Kubrick, we think of 2001. I already used that. Or you may not like 2001, in which case I offer you The Shining. Great movie, great horror movie. Check out Room 237. a great accompanying piece to this, the documentary. Some people think it has something to do with the moon landing. Not saying here nor there, but it's a lot of NASA stuff in it. That's what I will say. J.J. Abrams is next, and he's one of the few directors that covered two major franchises. He was a part of the Star Wars sequels, and also he got a chance to put his hand at Star Trek. I like this. I know a lot of people are kind of wishy-washy on it, but I really like this reboot of the Star Trek series, and I like that they had Leonard Nimoy come back and be a part of it as well. Pretty great. If we talk Star Trek, we need to talk Star Wars, which is George Lucas. And from this collection here, I'm going to go with the original, Episode 4, New Hope, whatever you call it. I'll just say Star Wars, because that's the way it was introduced to me. This made me love movies. Probably one of the first that just kept my eyes mesmerized on the big screen. But as I mentioned before, Goodfellas made me fall in love with the process of making movies and wanting to find out who was the director and the cinematographer and the editor, you know, and all those things. Got a few left here. De Palma, Brian De Palma. I'm someone who's so on his work when he's doing his original thing. I love it. You know, see things like Sisters and Carrie and The Untouchables. When he's trying to be Hitchcock, yeah, you could leave that alone. But The Untouchables, the movie I've seen the most in the movie theaters, seen it 8 times. I used to go to matinees and then sneak in to see this again because I love the movie that much. So I probably owe that theater a lot of money for the amount of times that I watched this without paying for it. But I have the 4K, so I don't think I'll be doing that anymore. So that's my 25. And I have one more for Ensemble Pick. And for that, I was going to go with the Russo brothers and pick Endgame. That would have been a perfect companion for you, Huck. But I changed my mind last minute. And instead, I'm going to go for True Romance. When you look at True Romance, the thing that stands out for this, besides the direction by Tony Scott, is the all-star cast. I'm talking Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Gary Oldman, Brad Pitt, Christopher Walken, James Gandolfini, Chris Penn. You have a whole slew of great actors in this movie. Even if they're on screen for 5 minutes, greatness. And this is just a fun movie. And Arrow did a really great job with this box set too. So this is one I could see me returning to throughout the years. But that's it. That's my 26 favorite directors. And I want to thank Huck once again for these challenges. They've been fun so far. I look forward to whichever ones he's going to have in the future. And if you'd like to do your own, feel free to do so. Otherwise, please like and leave a comment. Tell me what you think of my 25, or if you want to list your 25, go to mine or go to Huck's video that he posted to share them there. I'll have his link for his videos in the description. And until next time, go watch a movie.